This is Niger Unfiltered on SYMFONI TV. My name is Olawale Oluwade, and my guest today is Dr. Katch Ononuju, the Director General of the Heritage Center, a think tank based in Abuja. Dr. Katch, it's been a while.
Thank you very much for having me.
Nice for having you.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Now, without further ado, let's get into our conversation. And let's start with a number of issues we need to talk about, but let's start with the rescue of the 46 pupils and their teacher and principal in the Orire kidnap saga in Ogomosho. The rescue happened over the weekend. What's your take on this?
My take on it is I stand with the people of Oyo State as represented and publicly stated by their governor that there is a need for us to interrogate the release, or as some people call it, rescue, of the school children and their teachers in Oyo State. I was not happy when that happened, but I saw the pattern as similar to that of the Chibok girls' kidnappings. And I will also say that in what the officials who did the release of the children finally said was exactly what I said severally on television. That's been a standard mode for our police if they really want to get down to it. Why do I say this? When kidnappers start calling you with phone, they will call you with a SIM that they think is just fresh. But that SIM is inserted into a phone that has an IMEI number. So that IMEI number, no matter the SIM you put inside that phone, you use their SIM to call, the IMEI number of that SIM in that phone will always register. And the best way to always do this is once you have those calls, you start to interrogate what other numbers on any network that SIM may, or that phone may have called. And once those people are brought in for questioning to interrogate and locate where the people are, I, Katch Ononuju, had been on this issue for the past 12 years. None had been on national television playing this Fulani monologue like I have done. I have had scars. I have had governments trying to stop me. I have severally gone to television. Even when I did my study, I went to Burkina Faso, Mauritania, I went to Mali. I came back to Nigeria, and the things I saw on the Kwatrakwache Kankara Huntua route, I revealed and shared with Nigerians on channel television. The country now understood, because I say the people who do this action, it has sustained. But I want the country to understand it was a collective uproar from the Yoruba nation that forced the administration into doing what they should do. How come we do not have this kind of institutional outrage when children are also kidnapped in northern Nigeria? Probably, and the patrons of this terrorist. I have said this severally, and they were playing with it, probably because politicians think that it's a good thing to use violence to keep themselves in power. The other day, I saw the father of the foundational persons come on TV and try to blame other people, to try to wipe up very, very dirty and unacceptable sentiments. I tell myself this is how low this society is. If the country cannot bring consequences to such persons, that's why we are in trouble.
Okay, Dr. Katch, you've said a lot in your opening remarks, so let's try and unpack some of the things you said. Number one, Governor Seyi Makinde came out after the rescue to openly allege, that a sort of conspiracy in the kidnap of the pupils and their teachers, And don't forget that we're talking about casualties also in this saga. because two teachers, one teacher was beheaded, another died, and then we lost servicemen also during the rescue. So Governor Sheikh alleges that the kidnap coincided with his declaration for the presidency. So number one, can you address this issue of conspiracy?
Yes, because when the kidnap occurred, my friend, a former governor, Ayo Fayoshe, came to insinuate publicly that Seyi Makinde may have instrumented the kidnappings to give bad name to the administration. And now, the administration has done what we think is not very clear. So since you have people who are friendly to government, like Fayoshe and other people, accusing Makinde, and Makinde is also now saying that he suspects a staged kidnapping in reaction to his announcement that he would do presidential election. It only makes sense that we now find an independent body away from these two groups accusing themselves. Let there be an independent body to now interrogate this issue. If the governor is alleging a staging, and someone like Fayoshe is saying it was Makinde who organized it, the right thing to do is, if friends of the government insist it is Makinde, and Makinde now says he thinks it is the government people, the right thing to do is to find an independent body to do an interrogation of this particular issue. Why do I say this? We have had this problem before in Borno State, where the Chibok girls were taken, and of course a lot of us suspect that the Chibok girls was instrumented by politicians who sought to make President Goodluck Jonathan look bad. Now that we have this problem in Oyo, Makinde is not just any Nigerian. He is the governor for Oyo State. He was elected by the people. He speaks on behalf of the people. The people of Oyo are demanding for an independent interrogation of the events surrounding the kidnap. And the only thing to do is simply, since the governor is on a different side from friends of the government, let us have a third party to do an interrogation. I stand with Governor Seyi Makinde on it. Why? The state capture that we have today have lots of consequences, and what I believe is that this sudden loss of confidence in the government and its word regarding security and this kind of insecurity issues, let us have a third party. I stand on that. Interrogate this particular issue in Oyo State. I repeat, I stand with the people of Oyo as express their voices as said by their governor. That's where I am.
But let me ask you, Dr. Katch, as someone who deals in research, policy formulation, execution, implementation, why are we still battling this 17 odd years after this monster that has led to so much death, so much pain? And this is not just Christian genocide narrative. I'm talking about Muslims who have borne probably the bigger brunt of this.
The Hausas have borne the bigger here. They were not the first to come. The first to come here were the Portuguese. Then later on, the British came after the 1860 Berlin Conference. The British were here, but the Fulanese were also here as slave catchers. So when the British now sought to organize themselves as colonial masters, they also, after the killing of Sultan Atahiru in Gombe by Captain Moloney, Moloney was later killed in Kefi by Mekasoa. The British pursued Mekasoa to Kanu, where they caught him and hung him at the stake. The British later on employed the Fulani as agents to look after the Hausa and report back to the British in what we regarded in history as indirect rule. So when our fathers from the south were fighting for independence, the Fulanis were so strong over the Hausa Bokwe area, Hausas didn't even join the struggle for independence. So when the British left us, the Fulanis stayed back. So in principle, it was just the south that got independent. In the north, as I speak to you till this day, no Hausa man is emir anywhere in Hausa land. So as the democracy came, as the days grew, we started feeling freedom. And most people started looking at a way to use these violent militias to gain land. Now, As I said, Boko Haram started primarily as a consequence of some Borno people being angry. You remember when some of their people would come here calling themselves Borno elders, telling good luck, don't do this, don't do that. Yaradua didn't listen to that. I called my friend Chris Dega. Christopher Dega was a CP then. I met Chris Dega as CP in Delta State. Later on, he went to Borno. So when that issue happened, I said, Chris, what's going on? He said that they had presidential directive. Remember that time, I think Yaradua was going for either a UN conference or whatever. He gave that instruction. He understood what was going on. And of course, he's not the only leader in the north that have seen it. Other leaders have seen Maitasine, seen all the kind of things. It crushed them. But later on, after the boys were now weaponized against the state, you now saw the Borno elders moving in, telling good luck, don't touch them, don't touch them. It went on very much. But because of those politicians were supporting those boys, and most of those politicians are politicians that have real power. The story is, Alimodu formed the original Ekumok boys. I do one thing you Nigerians know about me. Go back. There's nothing I've ever said that has not turned out to be the truth. I sustained my Fulani monologue because of this crisis for over 10 years. Today, the Americans agree with me verbatim. Everything I say is true. Being pursued by elements of the Mieti Allah Katohore, led by Bello Abdullah Bodejo. Bello is a friend of mine. I was the only person at the Sheraton on the day it was launched that was not Fulani, sitting on the high table. I still have the pictures. Then you also have the Mieti Allah Makban, Cattle Breeders Association, led by the Sultan. Those were also blamed by the Americans. And of course, the other people who were doing what they are doing. So when you talk openly, they say you're trying to profile them. But when you are at war, you speak the truth. And my own problem is, when Tinubu came in, how come he's not been able to calibrate a reaction to do this? No. Luckily, we Americans came in, and that was why you was hearing over 200 of those militias were killed, and their weapons have been now taken over by the Americans to go and understudy, because every weapon has a mark, and you'll be able to trace who signed the end user certificate that brought that weapon wherever it is. And this is where we are. But you're asking why has it persisted? Because politicians have seen advantage in it. They now use the violence to secure territory, which is what is going on. Look at Maitawale blaming the Hausa vigilante called Yambanga, that it is because of high-handedness of the Yambanga that the Fulani militias are now reacting to try. But that's not true. When you bring people and put them in the bush and they have gun, a man with a gun gets a lot to go through his head. So I blame the Nigerian state, because if the state has had the political will to end this thing, we will have ended it since.
Okay, Dr. Katch, let me appeal that we need to move. We have probably like just 30 minutes left, so we need to, but we still have quite a number to cover. Critics have said that the APC Tinubu-led administration is totally disconnected from the everyday reality of Nigerians in terms of economy and insecurity. How do you respond to this?
I will say that Tinubu, through some of his pronouncements, he means well. That's what I want to think, because I like the rhetorics I hear. But it is an implementation. Don't forget, the most important factor and tool of leadership is trust. If they don't trust you because you don't give accounts, they will continue to say what. So if the economy gets well only when people in government give statements, but when you look on the streets, the people still suffer. And then they'll tell you they're doing well in insecurity, and yet the people in the Benue Valley cannot go tonight and sleep. People in Plateau cannot sleep. People in Briningwari cannot sleep. People in Southern Kaduna cannot sleep. Hausas in Katsina, Zamfara, and Sokoto cannot sleep. Then something is wrong. Kwara State is just a new thing because of the pressure on the Benue Valley. That's why they now did the diversion. Because you have militias with guns, so if you stop them from going to Route A, they will, with those guns, enter Route B. So when they enter Kwara, and then from Kwara, they now enter Oyo, They've been in all your sins. Don't forget, they've always been in Shaki. And then from the difference this time is that it was not just the problem in Shaki. It was the advance towards Ogbomoso and then the kidnappings and so on. If we had always had institutional outrage over these issues, the government may have found the will. But of course, you had a collective tribal outrage expressed by the Yorubas, and that was why you saw the government did what they did. But then, despite what they did, the governor of Oyo, on behalf of Oyo people, is demanding for an independent interrogation and investigation of the circumstances surrounding these kidnaps and their subsequent release.
What's your own assessment, if you have to give a score of President Tinubu's performance in 3 years? Because it's 3 years and about 2 months now. What score? In 1 minute, what's your score? How do you rate the president, the administration?
26 to 28%.
Not even 30%.
You wouldn't do, because Tinubu has failed in lots of ways. He has sustained the embrace of nepotism as policy of state, which is wrong. But I also see he's united quite a lot of us. Some people who were not there, like the Ezon, are now beginning to also cry. The Ezon were promised to be part of the new Nigeria in '66 if they joined the civil war on the federal side. What have they gotten? Even when they were promised Port Harcourt, Port Harcourt was removed from them by Abacha. And everything you have today in Rivers State were all people who were under the Igbo-Aro Confederacy that lasted from 1640 to 1900. The only people in today's Rivers State that were not part of the Aro Confederacy are the Ogoni. Ogonis came from Bakongo. Bakongo today is shared into 3 countries: Congo, Kinshasa, Congo, Brazzaville, and Angola. So they came here, but after the Emancipation Proclamation, they were kept where they are. And that's what it is. The rest of them, everybody, are Igbo. So the idea of telling me, who was born in Diobu, who grew up around Port Harcourt, trekking from Diobu to Nembe Waterside, from Nembe Waterside to Rumumasi, where my sister got married, that I should deny my heritage. That's nonsense. But of course, there are Igbos willing to deny their heritage. You can see it. And that's why you say, when those things happen, what is it? Is the Nigerian state putting pressure on them? Port Harcourt was renamed in 1913. The real name of that place is Iguacha. Iguacha, it means in Igbo, white hill. It was renamed in 1913 to honor Lord Vernon Harcourt, who at that time was Secretary of the Colonies in the British government. Because Port Harcourt was being used as a staging post to export the coal that Daddy Onyema was bringing from the mines in Enugu. And that's what it is. So whether you want to deny who you are or not, I see myself as a Rivers man. Me and Wike, we are Aro Ikwere. It was the Aro that were there, the Aro Confederacy. That's what it is. So if you now want me to deny my heritage because you want me to gain acceptance, I would not agree.
Okay, so President Tinubu has done, you score him 26%.
I will score Tinubu 25-26%, yes.
Okay.
But that does not say that he may not. The reasons why Tinubu didn't do well in my ranking is when he came in, the single biggest problem Nigerians had was insecurity. He came in, and when he was asked about the Benue thing, he said it's intercommunal clash. How? Benue is 98% Christians, and people come there to say Allah Akbar and start killing people. Ask me what Benue's offense is. They have water, and they have a special species of the elephant grass which cattle love, and that's why the Fulani set upon taking Benue by force. Same thing with areas of Mambila, the Kaka and the Pansa, and the Mambilan plains in Gembu. Same problem. Same thing all over Southern Kaduna. Same thing with Jos. Jos humidity is so beautiful, the British stayed there. I grew as a child in Jos. When I grew in Jos, there was no Fulani in Jos. Mostly along Jubilee, it was just the British. After Gowon did that indigenization decree, the British now left Jos and left Kaduna. That's why the thing became empty. And suddenly, we're now having people being killed. So for me, insecurity in any part of Nigeria is a threat to security all over the country. And I blamed President Tinubu for not having the courage to calibrate a response to these killings, because the first duty of government is the protection of lives and property.
Okay. let's interrogate President Tinubu's democratic credentials. He was touted as a Democrat, that he was part of those who fought against military dictatorship under Abacha, went into exile, joined the NADECO coalition forces that, resisted Abacha's the tyrannical activities and all of those. And then he came back, became governor, But here we are, 3 years into his administration. As we speak here, El-Rufai is in prison, not convicted yet, but going through judicial process. He's been granted bail, but once a court gives him bail, very stringent conditions, is coming out, another, agency hauls him in, and then. So my question, Dr. Katch, how do you assess President Tinubu's democratic credentials? Is he indeed a Democrat? Do you think he's a Democrat?
Tinubu can be called a Democrat by rhetorics, but by action, it's not democratic. If under Tinubu, ministers under him are going to court every day to try to kill PDP, kill ADC, kill NDC, there's no democracy in that. I have known Tinubu as a Lagosian. His strategy is, if he sees an opposition, if he sees an opponent, he'll try to delete that opponent or even delete the platform. That's been his strategy. So that he brought it nationally, I'm not surprised. But I also don't blame him totally. I blame Nigerians. Our country is as bad as it is because of our docility. If we were not docile, if we were not divided, we wouldn't be. Can you imagine the people suffering today? The indigenous people. Today, look at all these generals, these big boys of the militia. Bello Turuji is not Nigerian. He's from Niger. Bello Bodejo is from Niger. So when you start hiring all these foreigners to start fighting to take over Nigeria, I don't really think it's it. So I thought Tinubu should have, as he hits the ground, do that. There is enough number for him to impress and actually run on that record of having saved the people from dying. Why has the killing stopped in Benue Valley? Because the Americans came here. Why? The Benue church went to Rome. Rome directed them to Washington. They got to Washington, linked up with other Nigerians, made their case, and they said yes. The reasons why Tinubu and Buhari didn't care about people shouting Allah Akbar and killing Christians is because the people being killed as Christians. And that was how the Americans came here. But if you ask me, I know the Americans have always wanted to come to Nigeria since the days of Obasanjo. They didn't come here invited by a government. No, don't forget, they forced themselves here. Why? Nigeria is not Iran. Iran has a standing army. Nigeria doesn't have one. The army in Nigeria was damaged, compromised, and Afghanistan by the Buhari regime. And that's why you saw it's like those Fulani militias were invisible. They're not invisible. So when Christopher Musa came and people like me and others were campaigning for a reversal of that doctrine of do not engage, which was the doctrine Buhari's administration used to tie the hands of members of our security services. As I'm speaking to you, there are still arguments in the army whether they should respect General Christopher Musa's words that people abandon that doctrine of do not engage. Shoot if anybody cock gun near you. Fire if anybody fires. That's what it should be. Not wait until you get directive from politicians before you now do that. That's what damages. And who does this? That's why you saw when they have credible, actionable intelligence that there will be a kidnap. And then people will tell people to stand down weapon. Even where soldiers are put there, like you saw in the last area, the soldiers were removed. So there are still people in the security services who are still loyal to the Buhari doctrine. And that's our problem. So that's why I support Tinubu's most, I would say, revolutionary achievement since he became president. And that was the move towards state police. Some people fear that state police may be abused by governors, but this is a time of war. And whether you like it or not, the Fulani militias are very audacious. So if you take them to joke, you're just playing at, look at, you stop them from Benue, then now corner to Kwara and start moving into Oyo. Let the people have the guns. The state police will be the first place where you will now arm indigenous Nigerians to look after themselves. Nobody can be compromised if his village is under attack.
Do you think President Tinubu's administration is being fair to Malam Nasir El-Rufai? Because of the role you and I know El-Rufai played in enabling President Tinubu's victory in 2023, meaning rallying the North, northern votes for him, getting his fellow northern governors, elites, ulamas, the clerics, and all of those to deliver block votes. Some accounts between 50-60% of the entire 8 million votes President Tinubu got came from the North. So the wives of Malam Nasir came out the other day appealing to the conscience of President Tinubu that is this how you repay us for what our husband and we ourselves did. Do you believe Malam Nasir deserves what he is going through currently?
I was asked the same question last month in a fora in the United States. I told them that this issue between Tinubu and El-Rufai is what Nigerian police refers to as family case.
They are not two family members, though.
Family case. Hear me now. El-Rufai was in the same family.
Political family
of those who plotted to bring Tinubu to power. But the problem was, Tinubu said, at the time when the exit polls were coming, and we saw that Peter Obi won the election in all the military installations across Nigeria, the results were stopped. And we said, why are you stopping this? Because I, as head of media, I served as special advisor to Peter Obi on public affairs. Keyamo served as special advisor to Tinubu on public affairs. Dino Malaya served as special advisor to Atiku Abubakar for public affairs. And I knew what was going around on all those issues. And I knew when we asked questions of why have you stopped the collection of the results, they told us there was a glitch. El-Rufai, Tinubu, and others were in the same family, doing what they were doing. So for me, that was why you saw, even after the elections and Tinubu was sworn in as president, when they came talking to us that we should join them to do a national protest against Tinubu, I told my people, don't. I reach out to market leaders and leaders all over the places, the cells. I say, don't join. This is not our problem. This is their local family matter. That's why I say this is what police called family case. We refused to join them. And that initial protest against President Tinubu failed. But when it now came to issues of, we talk about let us form coalition, I told Peter, I said, look, these people asking for coalition are the same people who said no when we started our quest for equity in the PDP. Because that was how we formed the movement. We started in the PDP. I was saying no to them, me and Doino Kukwe, but we didn't have a candidate. When I first met Peter Obi, Peter refused to run against Atiku. Quote me. I had to go to Igbo leaders, Chief SNO Okeke, Okwadike that died, Chief Ezife. That was when the pressure came on Peter. Until we organized in, we'll say, a gathering of several Igbos from Abuja. They came, and Peter came that day. Peter said he will run. And that was how we started. So when I started doing what we were doing, we had our association build up organically. And that was when everybody started coming in. Tanko came from National Action Party. Kenneth Okonkwo came from APC, Enugu APC. We in the PDP were the foundational members of the movement. That's why when people come and try to damage it, I said, look, we were fighting for equity. And the equity is for the inclusion of all of Nigeria's diversity in the governance of its presidential system. That's what we're doing. But some people didn't understand. They thought it was an issue for money. So for me, what happens between President Tinubu and El-Rufai is something I lovely will want to stay out so that I can hear. No, because you see, when you now see, my mother tells me that whenever armed robbers come and steal from you, and they start fighting in public about the sharing of the loot, don't put your hand, so that you can understand properly what really happened when they came to your house. But on the issue of law, every worker deserves his wage, and every citizen deserves their rights. El-Rufai's rights should be respected in line with the law. What they did to us, I don't think they should do it to them. Remember during that time, Osinbajo got up one time and said that he would take me to court. He gave me 7 days, that if I do not take back what I said in public, that he will take me to court. I did not move. I told those who came to me, I said, if Yemi tries, I see him in any court, I will do what? I will open chapter 2 of my files on him. Yemi never went to court because I knew the game. From the talks I've had with elder statesmen, I was told that Yemi will never go to court because the immunity is not on him. The immunity is on the office of the vice president. So if he wanted to go to court against me, Katch Ononuju, he will need to resign. And when some leaders asked me, Kachi, do you really think Yemi will resign because of you? I said no. They said to me, don't worry. That's why I wasn't moved that time. So I have been through these issues. When you deal with a man, there are consequences when you plot with a man and you don't know who he is. So this is what it is. For El-Rufai and Tinubu's issue, as I said earlier, it's a family case. But because El-Rufai is a Nigerian, I will fight that his rights be respected, that he be given his right under our constitution. He should be given bail so that he can fight his case if there are cases against him, just the way they are taking Malami's own. Malami, remember, was Attorney General. Under the democracy, after the president, you have Attorney General. But where is Malami today? So nothing lasts forever, my dear brother. It is good that all of us come together to make Nigeria better than people conniving to establish this state capture, which I think what you see Tinubu doing are consequences of state capture. And Mr. El-Rufai, yes, I blame him in the past for being part of the clique that plotted to capture the state, but the hand unto whom they have now trust the state so captured is now dealing them a very, very dirty hand.
What's your response? This raging controversy surrounding the president's chief of staff concerning a fictitious, in inverted comma, agency, Presidential Foreign Investment Promotion Council. The man in question, said he gave a bribe of 400 million naira to get appointed as DG of that fictitious agency, remaining a balance of 200 million. It was denounced by the presidency, by Mr. Gbajabiamila. He got allocated offices at the federal secretariat, got line budgetary allocation in the national budget, got all sorts. I mean, you are familiar with the story. What's your general response to this, the way the president handled it and all of that?
Well, I think the presidency is not handling it well. The same with the Omahi case.
Which case is that?
The death of Mary Habila.
I think that matter, the police is investigating.
Well, the police should do an independent investigation, just as the Gbajabiamila case should also be investigated independently. Not Gbajabiamila to sit over the interrogation. You understand what I'm saying? So, because we're not suffering from the consequences of state capture, I think the state is not handling this issue well. The man has said that he gave 400 million. Am I right? Yeah. And it is his inability to bring the balance 200 million that caused the rift between him and Gbajabiamila. What I think the president should have done is to appoint an independent body, not with Gbajabiamila sitting over the judgment, an independent body to interrogate him. But if you see, as I said about the Omahi issue, you cannot be a judge in your own case. The state should allow, because I know historically, one thing the police does not play with is issues of murder and issues of robbery. And now we've had a young girl who moved from Kaduna to Ebonyi State to do, I don't know what they call it, but when I was asking people, I said, what did they say she did? He said, Daddy, which language do you want me to say? He said, is it the street? Is it the poor people? Or is it the big people name? I say, tell me the street. He said, that thing they did on the street, na shawo. What thing they do on the poor people, na hook up. But the big man do na physiotherapy. And I started asking, so then what happened? He said, sometimes when you do this physiotherapy, you must also give the client happy ending. If it doesn't come with happy ending, it can end up in the way it is. So that's why I think there should be an independent interrogation of these particular issues. But that of Omahi and that of The president is wrong to keep mute, to stay hands, and to look the other way while Rome burns. I think that's wrong. I believe there should be an independent interrogation, though I see Mr. Adeyemi himself has done something I think is smart. He's been able to hire U.S. lobbying people so as to raise voice in the United States within caucuses where these issues can actually be let out. It is dangerous where we're going to. The Gbajabiamila thing, the president doesn't want an independent interrogation. The same thing with the Habila thing. They don't want an independent interrogation by the police. They want to bury the girl with, how can you have murder? It's not a private issue. Once it's murder, it is between you and the state. So it has nothing to do with whoever says they are compromised relatives. No, that's not true. Once it is murder under our law, it's an issue of state. So why would the state not have an autopsy of the girl? Once it's something like robbery, as we've seen in the robbery of our money, you can see the systemic filing of that committee into the budget, provision of sec-off grants, and then the man being given offices. That itself is also robbery. Robbery of our commonwealth. Now, one of them has gone wrong. Do me and you know how many of such agencies exist where the proper money was paid and there's no noise? That's why the president needs to allow for independent interrogation of these issues.
Okay. Let's switch gears from that. Do you think the opposition parties and their candidates, are they doing enough to put these governments on its toes?
No. No. A house divided cannot fall. I speak to you from a position of
a house divided
authority.
cannot stand.
No. Why? The problem we had in 2022-23 was the division. Once it got to, because the North had finished doing 8 years with Buhari, so to allow the presidential pendulum to now shift to the South, that was why I fell out with Atiku. Atiku refused. The same Atiku who formed MPDP and used that to build a coalition with ACN, with CPC, with ABGA, and AMPP led by Obonoonu, and then you brought about your wish, and Northerner became president, and he did it for 8 years for the sake of nation building. Allow the presidential pendulum to also swing to the South. And that was when Atiku refused, I went against him. I was a lone voice. Then I got Doyin Okugbe, and we started shouting, and that was how we formed the Obida movement. We went to Obi. First time I met Obi, Obi refused. Obi refused to run against Atiku. It was when now we made all the pushing, Obi finally agreed. And I respected him because he had strong regard and respect for Atiku. He said, no, Kachi, I will not go up again. He was calling him my boss. I said, who's your boss? He was calling him my principal. He said, no, Kachi, I will not go against my principal. And I was laughing. And I looked at this man. But I wanted equitable, inclusion of my own section of Nigeria in the presidency of Nigeria. And that was why, as Tinubu and co were fighting on their own side in APC for the thing to come to the South, we were also fighting in PDP for the thing to come to the South. Atiku should have respected that. Atiku has been well blessed since he became a Nigerian in 1961. Atiku was born in German Cameroon. But when Germany lost the Second World War, Cameroon was taken off them and shared amongst the French and the English. And that was when British own side of Cameroon did their plebiscite. The British now brought them in. That's how the Adamawa province became part of Nigeria. And the rest is history. And since then he came, within 9 years, he got into the customs. He rose to become vice president. That's inclusion. Allow the Southerners inclusion, Atiku refused. And that's why you saw the opposition split. And that's why I tell you, when you're divided, it becomes a problem. But we also were told this issue, that we are divided. But even some people say, Kachi, are you crazy? You're leading Peter into a blind area. No. Yes, I was angry, but I also knew, I understand the street. I understood the psychology. And of course, we knew what to propagate. We sustained, and the rest is history. So for me, because things are still bad, if Tinubu allows free and fair election, he's gone. And tell you one thing, we're going to do this time what we didn't do before. We're not going to go to court. in our country will say, why are you providing human bodies for counting?
Are
But
you-
we believe, since the judiciary has now been pocketed, when a man tells you to go to court, you remember what Goodluck said? It means that his brother is a judge. So when they now force us to go to court, they already have people who are compromised in court. And we said, no, there is no need going to court. We're going to learn the Kanu doctrine.
Are you calling for a resort to self-help?
So if we really want to help our country, I told you before, our main fundamental problem in Nigeria is the docility of citizens. And of course, the absence of courage. Of all virtues you have as a human being, the most important virtue is courage. I come every time on television and I sustained the telling of the violence being perpetrated by militias. Not that I am the only one who knows. Some know it, but they lack the courage to share what they know. So I am telling you now that the next election will be decided at the booth, not in the courts.
Don't you think, Dr. Katch, that your passion, your conviction, and this courage should be channeled to ensuring the leading presidential candidates, Atiku Abubakar, Peter Obi, Donald Duke, Adebayo Adewale, even Showore, these guys find a way to come together, bury their individual egos, and rally around one amongst themselves. Present a formidable opposition. The word is formidable opposition, because if they go into this contest the way it is presently, it's a repeat of 2023.
I don't know what tomorrow will be, but what I know is I know the past. I know 2023. In 2023, we had no party. We had no governor. We had no single councillor. But you saw how it ended. Peter got 6+ million votes. So tell me what the other man who was talking silly about Peter Limodo Sheriff, has he ever gotten up to 3 million votes before in the North, 2.8 million? No. So if a man could, without anything, without people understanding, don't forget we started this 8 months to election. 8 months for election. Once we started that thing, we brought it out, people started joining us, and that was how the thing grew organically. So what I'm telling you is, we who did it then know what to do again.
Let me ask you, do you believe INEC, this present INEC, as it is presently set up under Professor Josh Amokwita, can deliver free, fair...
INEC fixes.
The election, I think, 16th, if I'm not mistaken.
16th of what?
January.
Good. The Igbos were targeted. This is my view.
No, I don't think.
Wrong.
No, I don't think so.
Well, I am telling you this as an Igbo man. If I go home, it is after everybody has left, second, third, and fourth. That's when I will now stay to do the important things I couldn't do during the festivities. When I finish them, by the end of January, I start coming back to my station because there's no need to rush. Of course, I couldn't do certain things like burials. You know, the Igbos will wait after Christmas, then they start the burials as they enter January. This is the largest human migration annually in Africa. And for that particular period to be now targeted, it means the Igbos who are committed to migration, when they migrate, you now put election. What are you going to tell me about that? So for Amopitan to be part of that, I'm not comfortable with him.
The context within which INEC under Josh Amopitan shifted the polls forward.
What was his reason?
No, just hold on. Forward to January was that the Muslims, the Muslim Nigerian citizens said, oh, the elections earlier scheduled for February will clash against the holy month of Ramadan.
So you don't forward to March.
So you don't agree with INEC?
If the Muslim story is real, move it to March. Why move it to trap the Igbos? I'm happy you've said that. If the Muslims say, the Igbos, don't forget, represent the largest individual block of Christians in West Africa. So why are you going to now, when they are at home, preparing to do their festivities, you're putting an election? Don't you understand that?
And I think in any case, there's enough time between elections and swearing inauguration in May 29.
What I'm trying to tell you is this thing was targeted to undermine the Igbo vote, nothing else. These are my positions. Let they come and tell us. If the Muslims say what they said, have they asked about the Igbo? Tell me now. So instead of you having an MC Olomo and co to do voter suppression, the Igbos wouldn't have been back during that time. You saw Lagos, when the Igbos travel, it becomes empty. So you now want to do election when Lagos is still empty? Tell me. So this is my view, and I've had this view since last year. I was thinking about this. I said, let these people not try this, because it was being discussed around, and then it was implemented. The fear became reality. I am telling you now, you've asked this question. This is my own fear about this particular issue, and I think it's wrong. If they want an election where everybody can have a sense of belonging and inclusion in, shift it to March.
Are you afraid that President Tinubu and the party, the APC, the government, are you worried about what is going on, the instrumentalization of the judicial system to make sure parties are embroiled in a never-ending circus of, court cases, deregistration, not deregistration, leadership tussle, this one, that one, just going on to as we speak, Katch. We don't even know whether Atiku is on the ticket or not on the ballot, because INEC has uploaded, but there was an appeal court judgment recently that said, don't recognize any congresses, conducted under the David Mark. Another court in Lokoja said, I recognize NDC in December. June, he said, no, don't recognize them again.
Who went to get the judgment in Lokoja? Was that a political party?
It was a movement, an association.
Listen, that's why I tell you, in practical terms, Asiwaju has not behaved like a Democrat. So it's one thing to have rhetorics that give you something that looks good, but look at in practice. Why is it under him that these things are happening?
The PDP, as we speak, is completely gone. Completely.
The PDP?
Yes.
You're calling PDP. The idea of the PDP, Wike said that he wants PDP. Wike started working with Tinubu 2018, 2017. That was why Amechi could not get a candidate in 2019 under his party in Rivers State. It continued. 2023, Amechi still didn't get one. So Wike has been with Tinubu for a long time. I don't worry about it. Where I worry is the issues of heritage denial. It undermines, the enterprise of inclusion for all tribes. For me now to be forced to deny who I am so as to gain inclusion, so as to gain acceptance, that's wrong. That's not good. That's not proper. Worst part, you saw Tinubu spending $3.9 billion on infrastructure. Where did he put Lagos, Ibadan, Kaduna, and Kano? What about the East, where the wealth comes from the hydrocarbon fields? Just like what Buhari did. Ibekachukwu drew the National Gas Master Plan with the East in it. The East is the home of gas. The largest gas deposit in Africa is in Imo State at a place called Anon North in Ohaji. How come? And that particular place is the richest onshore oil-bearing part of Nigeria. That Obaru Basin, because all the leads from Obaru in Ndiono, in River State, which in Igbo is called Ndioniyi, the people on the water bank. The other Ndiono is Ndiono in Atani, where Stella Odua was representing. So you now have Obaru in that Atani. You also have Obaru in Ndiono, all the leads from Obaru in Ndiono, and Stella Odua was representing Obaru in Atani. So inside the middle of it is the largest onshore oil-bearing part of Nigeria and the largest gas field in the whole of Africa. And yet, Buhari will build a gas master plan without the East included in the master plan. Doesn't that tell you that the APC seems not to be thinking about our future when it comes to making sure you do things to sustain peace?
Let me ask you this before we round up. Peter Obi came out last week to allege, on record, that his source of livelihood are being targeted by the federal government. But worse, when he was asked, ticket next year or the ballots, he said no, that he may not even be on the ballot. He said, what do you mean? He said that his life, that he may not even be alive. Are you worried for Peter will be
I'm
safe.
worried, but I'm also happy that he went public. You know, because I know Peter. Peter doesn't talk frivolously. You know, before he says a thing, he holds it. For him to be forced to do this, I believe him. And so it was good. As he said it, he now went outside to cool everything down. Right now, he's in Europe. Last week when we spoke, he was in the US. And he was meeting a lot of people and talking to the world. So he goes to Europe now. He's also talking to the people and meeting people. It makes sense. It was a good thing that he did make that announcement. And I will say it now, and I will restate it for those who heard me say it before. I believe Peter Obi's words. Peter is not a man who makes frivolous comments or statements. For him to say that he has credible intelligence, that his life is under threat, I believe him. And a lot of us who are with him believe him. The government should please make sure they warn all the rogue agents around. It may not be the government, but there could be rogue units in different places doing different things, thinking that they are doing it, just like the thing you saw in Lokoja. It's not the government, but there are rogue agents doing that. And we found out on interrogation, it's not even a political party. It's some kind of a social association that say they are registered as corporate affairs commission. The law says political parties, you can have elephant display the clothes of lion or what tiger. The first person that registers tiger at INEC as his logo, that's what the law says. So why will some crazy rogue unit go? And that's the same thing. So there are several rogue units working independently. And that's why we thought it's good that Peter has said this. Let government tell them that there are consequences if anybody tries this. Because when the government kept quiet during the voter suppression by MC Oloma and co. in Lagos, just the government staying hands and looking the other way emboldened those who were doing the voter suppression. This is the same thing. Let the attacks on Peter's business and his person stop. The government has to call those people to order. You remember Yaradua was there, and when other people complained about what PDP was doing, Yaradua instructed the courts to simply let them be. Tinubu should have tried to allow the political parties to be.
So, final question. Can President Tinubu still be defeated in 2027, this coming election? Can he be defeated? And what plans do you have to forestall any shenanigan, rigging, manipulating the INEC or judiciary? What's the plan?
I'm not going to tell you publicly now plans that parties will use to hold. I've only given you just one. Yes. What one I gave you is because I know what will happen. For me, I have no doubt that Tinubu should allow for free and fair elections. If you allowed free and fair election, we saw what happened in 2023. Nothing has changed. The suffering has increased. The insecurity has doubled. What I'm angry about is Tinubu's incompetence in managing or even calibrating a reaction to the violence, to the insecurity. What I'm worried about is Tinubu's embrace of nepotism as policy. I'm from the East and I'm not happy. If Tinubu shares the infrastructure project, he doesn't give to the East. The Southeast, South, the Old Eastern region doesn't get anything. What you got in sharing infrastructure to the tune of 3.9 billion was the Old Northern region, the Old Western region. So where is the Eastern region? I am from the East. Why should I be happy? The people you see who are saying, don't talk, living, most of them from the East, those are people who have become heavily corrupted and compromised. So for them to just blindly say, don't talk, leave Tinubu, because they don't want to be probed. You understand what I'm saying? Someone like Omahi, all those behaviors is due to the amount of corruption that he's become involved. Now look at it. A girl died in his house. Regular police thing is to allow the police to do the investigation because there is murder. Murder is not private between family and family. No, it's a state issue. Once there's murder involved, the case will be you versus the Commissioner of Police.
Nice place to anchor. Dr. Katch, it's been a pleasure having you on this afternoon. Thanks for coming. And I'm sure we'll do this again.
Of course we'll continue. No story is told with a single, I always believe in that no phenomenon is ever described with a single story. So we'll continue to describe, just like when we went to election 2022, when I was telling them, they said, why are you doing this? It's too late. Then in the PDP, when we got out and we started the movement, people joined us from all walks of life. It was an organic movement, and I can assure you, we can organically organize again. If the government knows that the opposition will not win, why are they afraid?
Absolutely. Thanks for coming, Dr. Katch.
Thank you very much for having me.
We'll see you soon.
I also thank your audience for the patience. We'll continue to share and rub minds. But of course, as I will want to tell all of them, the country is bad because we've been docile and we've not been able to show courage. We should show dignity and be courageous in saving Nigeria.